Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is Kai. She decided that today she was going to make her debut. She's over it. I'd like to thank our special guest, Kai, who made a very brief appearance. Let's get started. So today we are talking about the common Caesar salad triggers. What makes you want a Caesar salad? Pretty much nothing, ever. We are talking about triggers that can result in a seizure. Now, first off, I'm not a doctor, but I have had seizures for about 12 years now. So I know a lot about what causes my seizures. I've done a lot of research on what other people experience who have seizures like me. It's also important to note that every single person's seizures and every single person's triggers are going to be different. I have grand mal seizures, so those are the ones that you kind of think of probably most readily when you think of seizures. They're the ones where you end up on the floor, you're shaking, twitching, complete loss of control of your body. And for the most part, I don't remember anything from a seizure, and I also don't usually remember much of what happened before the seizure. But there are tons of other kinds, and all of them are triggered by something different. For me, it's typically a combination of triggers. According to penmed.org, which is linked below, the most common seizure triggers are lack of sleep, missed medication, alcohol, menstruation, and stress. Or a little menagerie, if you will, of all of them. For a lot of people, low nutrition levels in sodium, magnesium, and calcium can affect the electrical activity of the brain and then result in a seizure. There's also some new studies coming out in terms of vitamin B6 and how a deficiency in that vitamin can potentially lead to a seizure. From what I've read, there's still no conclusive studies, but they're on the verge of thinking, hey, maybe this is something that if you have seizures, you might want to take a vitamin B supplement. Just maybe. Despite common belief, only 3% of people who have seizures are photosensitive, meaning only 3% of people are sensitive to flashing lights. It's a very common remark and very common belief to see flashing lights and for the joke to be, oh, I'm going to have a seizure. Really and truly, not many of us with epilepsy actually have any issues with flashing lights. For me, it's not a big issue. The only time I become photosensitive is if there are other triggers at play. That will and has caused a seizure. I've certainly had a seizure at our gym because I was on my period, felt a little bit stressed out, and the combination of those two triggers with a little bit of movement from the lights caused a seizure. Another common trigger that affects a lot of people is getting overheated. So it's actually encouraged by doctors not to work out, not to get too hot, not to work outside. So let's say like construction workers, they're working really hard outside, getting really hot. When I was first diagnosed with seizures, they told me not to go on runs anymore. I told them to forget that. But just in general, getting too hot can lead to a seizure. Going back to the gym example, let's say the lights are kind of moving around more than they would in your house or just outside. And I'm feeling stressed out. If I get on the treadmill and start running, get really hot, the odds of me having a seizure, not good. Especially if I'm on my period and there's all of those things going on, there's almost a 100% chance that I will have a seizure. However, if I take that run outdoors where it's more calm, the lights are stable, it's just the sun. Even if I'm stressed, even if I'm on my period, even if I get hot during a run, which is kind of the purpose of a run, I won't have a seizure. Simply because the lights have been taken out. So for me, it's a combination of being overheated that makes me also photosensitive. Fun fact for all you ladies out there who have seizures, over 50% of us are much more likely to have a seizure on our period than to not. 50%! That's so much. People who are light sensitive, it's 3%. The women who have seizures, over half of us are affected by our periods in that it can lead to seizures. As if being on your period wasn't bad enough, now you gotta worry about maybe having a seizure this week? That stinks. The reason for this all has to do with our sex hormones. Estrogen, progesterone. Progesterone can protect you from having a seizure, while increased rates of estrogen can make you more likely to have a seizure. I am going to create a whole nother video on this, so stay tuned to that. I'm not going to dive into the science behind our sex hormones as women and how that can affect our seizures. Stay tuned, it's coming up. But when it's that time of the month, just make sure that you're being a little extra cautious and a little extra aware of how you're feeling. Make sure not to miss any of your medication, get good sleep, maybe don't drink anything, and try to get through that week as well as you can. Eat some chocolate, get some 90% chocolate, eat it up. That's what I do. There's tons of other triggers that haven't even really begun to be fully understood. Things such as low blood sugar, anxiety, depression, carbs, sugar, the type of food you eat. All of these things can trigger a seizure. The way I eat is a strategy that helps me eliminate a seizure trigger, which is carbs, which is spiking my blood sugar. When my blood sugar is spiked, I absolutely feel more likely to have a seizure. It doesn't always happen, but if you've had seizures long enough, you'll know that there is a feeling of it's coming. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm working to eliminate even more carbs out of my diet because my seizure activity has gone up in the past 6 months. And I'm trying to get it back down because it's not fun. So to review, lack of sleep, missed medication, menstruation, stress, anxiety, depression, low levels of sodium, magnesium, calcium, potentially vitamin B6, and lastly, lights can all be triggers to your seizures. It's super important to pay attention to the day that you have a seizure. What happened in that day? What was going on? What were you doing before? And that can help you begin to eliminate the triggers that are specific to you that result in a seizure. The key really is to almost be like a researcher in your own life to figure out what little pieces of life is your brain not agreeing with and thus resulting in a seizure, and then eliminate those things. It's not worth it. That's going to be all for me today. I hope you've gotten something out of this list of common triggers. I will be doing more videos in the future about each trigger and why it is actually a trigger. What makes it so that it disagrees with the brain so much. So you can look forward to that in the future. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful, seizure-free day. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.